Is that Jim? Is Jim dead? Is he an evolved infected? Is this a dream sequence? What is going on? So 28 Years Later is coming out in June of 2025, 18 years after 28 Weeks Later premiered, and we are finally getting the third installment we have long awaited for. And boy, does it match the tone and atmosphere of the first movie while not completely spoiling everything. In fact, it leaves you wanting more, something a lot of Hollywood trailers have failed to do so in the last, well, I can't even tell you how long. But after hearing about a 28 Weeks Later sequel for over a decade, it's about damn time, and it looks like it's going to be well worth the wait. But with the trailer giving us a taste of what we can expect, we can at least discern what direction the franchise is going in, especially given the fact that Danny Boyle has already set in stone that 28 Years Later will be getting a sequel fairly soon after, and it is already dubbed 28 Years Later 2 Bone Temple, which we do get a glimpse of whatever the hell the Bone Temple is in the trailer. Who or what is putting together the bones of the dead like monuments? A new society or cult revering the rage virus? Is Jim himself putting together his own kill count from the last 3 decades in an orderly fashion? It all leads to me just spamming out questions and scrambling to belt out answers. While there is a lot to look into visually, I want to go over the overarching narration that we can hear. It is a 1915 poem by Rudyard Kipling called Boots. It goes over how 60,000 British infantrymen marched through South Africa. All of this set to a maddening rhythm. The poem uses the first 4 words in each line at the rate of 2 words to the second, a time matching the marching beats of British soldiers. Where did the virus start from? Britain. There are 2 lines from this that stuck out more to me than any other, the second to last being this.
Try, to think of something different. Oh, keep from going lunatic.
Basically paralleling the rage virus's effect on people, battling its effects, but ultimately failing to resist the pathogen's conversion of the mind. A given considering the rage virus infected and their crazed behavior, but also the maddening descent of people in post-apocalyptic society. We saw that in full display in 28 Days Later when the abandoned platoon became the monsters above the blood-spewing foe zombies. So it is safe to say that 28 years later, factions of people would be at each other's throats. We do see the perspectives of 3 different groups wandering through post-outbreak UK and managing to survive in camps. So it's possible we are getting an anthology and perspective of these 3 groups before they ultimately converge together, possibly to fight and survive against whatever threat they have to face within the rising action and climax of the film. Now, what exactly is this threat? Is it other insane but healthy people that are putting bones together? Is it Jim himself in his own descent into personal madness to parallel the lines of keep me from going lunatic? Or is it the infected? But how? How are they still alive at this point? Well, in my video, How is 28 Years Later Going to Be Possible?, I discuss how infected that died off within weeks due to starvation, thirst, and exhaustion would not pose a threat long term. But with some hints in the trailer, it seems that things, or I should say certain people, have changed.
They're changing.
A prominent line within this poem reads out as this: "We can stick out hunger, thirst, and weariness." Hunger, thirst, weariness. And then reads off as this: "But not the chronic side of 'em. Boots, 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 moving up and down again." Repetition, only one goal in mind: to move forward and stay focused on one side. The incessant and maddening poetry being from the perspective of the infected themselves, but now addressing their weakness. Hunger, thirst, weariness. They have apparently evolved to stick out or go beyond the limits of hunger, thirst, and fatigue. A poster that flew completely under my radar until searching for this video popped up showed a decapitated head in hand saying this quote: "In 28 days, it began. In 28 weeks, it spread. In 28 years, it evolved." The infection suffered after 28 days since its numbers dwindled. It's possible its resurgence in 28 weeks later, mixed with Don starting the outbreak from his wife's carrier strain, that the rage virus had adapted to make its infected more like the conventional zombie. Instead of always blindly raging, biting, and assaulting non-infected, maybe they have gained some sentience. Maybe they don't need to drink, eat, or sleep. But the latter there of them not eating, drinking, or sleeping is not very likely, especially since Danny Boyle has said from the beginning that the rage infected are not zombies. However, 28 Days has influenced a lot of zombie culture, being inspirations for the idea for Running Dead and sparking my favorite game series, Left 4 Dead. It's very well possible that the writers came full circle in their inspirations to make Evolving Infected. In some parts, the infected have shown to attempt to at least know how to ambush people or pretend to be dead throughout the series. The same can be seen with that one scene with the infected hanging upside down with its head covered, lying dormant until someone drew near to spring to life. I've discussed before how 28 Days Later had to have its ending revised, not once but twice, starting from an ending where Jim bled out and died in a hospital, coming full circle in his journey through the rage-stricken land. But the ending that we got because audiences didn't want a dark and dreary ending, and it's all but canonized now, is the ending where Jim not only survives, but lives peacefully in the countryside with the two ladies making SOS signals to attempt to be rescued. We never see what happens afterwards. A plane flying by does not mean they were rescued. They could have been left in the quarantined island indefinitely, possibly even remaining there when the second rage pandemic occurred, killing off the two women and leaving Jim on his own again. Jim experienced nightmares in the first movie of being left alone. Now, with no one else again but the infected around him, his survival dictated he needed to be the man that slaughtered a compound and basically worked with the infected to come out alive. His maddening descent may be meaning his body is deeply into stages of starvation, dehydration, and more, but constantly going on his own rage. Maybe he has flip-flopped with the infected, but now is the one dying from the very thing that killed off the original infected. It is also possible that Jim may have survived the original ending in the hospital and merely dreamed of the farm afterwards, eventually waking up again just like he did at the hospital, starved, thirsty, exhausted, but now alone again, following the same path I just discussed, but more depraved from the start. Jim could come back as a battle-hardened and unsettling survivor, or husk of a man that suffered through the pandemic from the beginning. Maybe that shot of him looking like a zombie was just a dream of his that he saw himself as a husk. Maybe the infected themselves have evolved to now look like that long term, and Jim saw himself as such. He saw himself as a long surviving infected. Now, what could these infected have become if they could survive? Armed guards are seen staring at something tall, or at least horrifying, before they're flung around like rag dolls. It's possible variants have cropped up from the rage infected, and what we saw as the Jim infected could be what would be a completely brittled infected, one of the weakest that's around, forcing this infected body to survive despite the body pretty much being on empty. No blood to speak of, or red eyes, or anything, which on that note, honestly, it is mind-blowing we did not get to see a single close-up of the infected, the key integral part of this franchise. Very talented to make the trailer here not have the key visual, and I'm all for it. It's leaving the infected up to interpretation in what they are and what they have become. They were already one of the most terrifying zombie-like threats in fiction, running and mad people that can infect you with just the slightest drop of bodily fluid, but we didn't get to see their reddened eyes or blood going everywhere. Now, they can possibly mutate or at least adapted to their environment and survive indefinitely. We could see what looks like an infected dwelling in dirt and mud at about a minute in. Maybe they can acclimate to their environment. Could they learn to eat the flesh of the healthy in order to get some kind of fuel in their body? Can they learn to drink from bodies of water and in turn infect that water source? Have they learned to rest? What about the people that have been fighting them all this time? People have managed to make rustic and rudimentary communities, assigning tasks to help their communities and more, bringing back civilization to a small degree, but seemingly small and divided. It's very well within reason that there is a constant conflict amongst the healthy or living, mind you. With the infected now changing, people have had to rely on bows and arrows instead of firearms that have definitely all been used up or broken down at this point in time. Fighting the infected as they change will be much more difficult. Trying to hit these erratic targets from long range with a bow and arrow and trying to avoid close encounters so you don't get any blood on you, all while this backdrop of a bone temple is slowly building up. Could the living be acclimating to learn to hide from the infected? Is that why there's bones everywhere? Maybe these were flesh mounds? Is there a fanatic faction out there playing with corpses like they're Legos? I have failed to mention it up to this point. It seems like a definite outcome. There seems to be some kind of like cult of the rage virus going on. There are people donning cult-like masks and they have infected hanging upside down. As I mentioned earlier, people will be at war or fighting one another as spotlights are shined on running people in water. There are the living fighting amongst each other while the infected are out there. The trailer leaves us a shot of this bulky, unbloodied man that is running like an infected main character. It's only seen for a split second, but where you can see the bulking behemoth attacking a SWAT team to brutally kill them, it looks like he has the rage eyes, but they are not completely reddened. So maybe they're adapting and maybe their muscle mass is getting up there, but it is leaving it to be ambiguous as to what the direct threat is going to be, or if there's going to be a ton of threats. There is nothing but war that is going to be going on. And the key quote from the Boots poem that started all this and that is repeated ad nauseum is this quote.
Falling up and down again. That's all discharge in the war.
Meaning that this is not going to stop anytime soon between anybody. Are the infected's evolution going to be one of bodily change, adaptation, and maybe even intelligence? Is this cult-like faction going to be helping them to take over more of Britain? Is Jim integral to the warring factions of the living, the insane, the infected, or serving his own maddened purposes? Or maybe it's all a dream. How will years of waiting for us, germinating for the virus, and the breakdown of humanity play out with everything, all the rage? Who knows, but I cannot wait to see what's next. What do you think of what was in the trailer? What do you expect from the rage virus and those that try to either quell it or praise it? Let me know down below and let's get discussing. Thank you to Chago, aka Quick Flicks, for editing this quick as hell video together. We didn't even plan to do this video, but honestly, it was a lot of fun put together at the last minute. Thanks to my Patreon patrons and YouTube channel members for pitching in to be on this list here. Until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, do not rage, and stay well.